As we know, the media is supposed to hold government ministers to account, particularly when they're not across their brief. But what happens when the minister concerned is a darling of the left? Well, we saw an example of that this week when Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek addressed the National Press Club.
Almost 2 years ago, the Morrison Government received an official review into the Environmental Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. It was written by Graeme Samuel and the message was as blunt as the State of the Environment report. To quote Professor Samuel, "The EPBC Act is outdated and requires fundamental reform." To help guide that change, I'm announcing that by the end of the year, the Australian Government will formally respond to the Samuel review.
But hang on, the Samuel report, which Plibersek referred to, was publicly released in January 2021. Now she's saying the government won't respond to it until the end of this year. So why has it taken Labor so long to act? Some journalists weren't buying it.
The report's been out 2 years now, you said so yourself. Labor's been in opposition for 9 years.
Yeah, I've been the minister
surely
for
there's a more
6
distinctive.
weeks.
It's your government, it's your policy.
Yes, and I've been the minister for 6 weeks, thanks. It is way too early in the term of the new government for me to be doing that. I am 6 weeks into this job. As I say, 6 weeks into the job, I'm not going to start ruling things in or out. And I haven't even begun to do the amount of consultation that I want to do with state and territory governments, with environmental and business stakeholders on some of these big questions. I'd note that those regional forestry agreements are all coming up for renegotiation in coming years, and those conversations with state and territory governments will be important conversations to have.
Talk about defensive as soon as journalists ask for details. And as the Sydney Morning Herald's Mike Foley wrote, Tanya Plibersek spent much of her time during her first major speech in the portfolio explaining that she needed more time to figure out what she would do to halt the staggering wildlife and habitat losses Australia is suffering. It begs the question, why? If Labor created substantial energy and climate policies during its decade in opposition, it didn't do the same for the environment. Had a coalition minister been this unprepared, then he or she would have been rightfully castigated by journalists. Plibersek, by contrast, got the kid glove treatment. And if you needed any more evidence than that, the Canberra Press Gallery has a green left bias. You only had to see this.
Thanks, Minister. We now know things are much worse than we thought they were going to be. Isn't the fastest way to cut down on carbon emissions just simply to say, right, no more coal mines? It's all different. You know, there is a reason. There's a reason that absolves you from all previous qualifications that you've given. It's something new.
Lisa, I think we're seeing a lot of common themes, in the last couple of weeks: environment, climate change, these broader policies which have a lot of commonalities with the coalition. But then as soon as Labor is being asked about them for details, they're getting defensive and they aren't really able to demonstrate from a detailed perspective why they are different.
Look, what she did was she defaulted back to the 101 of media management, which was, we are in the very early days. Well, wrong, she's not, but that's what she ran with. And then deflect to, well, I need to speak to stakeholders, I need to consult widely. It was a very long answer. I should have timed it. It was, what, 20 odd seconds long? But she didn't really say anything in there, and she didn't actually give any detail at all. And as you say, the journalists didn't go after her. They didn't push it hard. And they keep reverting back to this, well, we need to see an end to coal and gas. Do they want to see our lights go out? Do they not remember just a few weeks ago when Sydney was told, don't put your dishwasher on? It's ridiculous that they're out there pushing this barrow and backing up this green argument that we need to turn our back on fossil fuel. The journalists, I tell you what, heading into Parliament next week, the journalists who are on the left side of the media must be terribly excited because they will be able to get out there and push this hard agenda.
Yeah, and Kel, it's just so transparent to me when I'm watching this. I mean, obviously that fella from the AFR, he asked a really tough question. There was a bit of sniggering in the crowd when he pushed her on these policies. But collectively, there seems to be this acceptance that Labor good on climate and environment, coalition bad. But when you're asking for the specifics of that, what are you specifically going to do to help koala habitats, to lower emissions? You just get gobbledygook and defensive answers.
Yep, you're right. I think there's two things going on. Part is what you're talking about with the Parliamentary Press Gallery, who've now got their team in power, and so they're not going to press them. They're not going to make them look bad. They don't want to make them look bad. It's our team. It's our mob. So that's going on. That's part of what's going on. And then there is the cynical journalist within me who says there's layers within layers. She used the 6 weeks repeatedly. And what she was basically saying was, well, I've spent years getting across the education portfolio, and then suddenly 6 weeks ago, this leader of ours stuck me in this new portfolio, and I'm busy trying to get across this. So she's setting herself up so within 2 years' time, when we have frequent blackouts and our power bills go up by 300%, then Albanese can be replaced by Plibersek to go to the next election. Am I being a cynical journalist?
She's not across the brief, in part because she was punted to a portfolio. She never thought that she was going to manage. But she's
scheming. There's something going on here. I mean, I'm not that cynical and sceptical, surely.
There was a lot of grandstanding. I think, Lisa, why do you even do a press club speech? Why do you have this grandstanding, massive speech about what you're going to do if it's too early to know what you're going to do?
Well, not only that, what she's done, and I was going to say that pretty much she looks like she's green, not so much with envy, but with political posturing now to position herself in a way that she can kind of, I've been, as Kel said, she was dumped out of education into environment. She's basically been pushed to one side as far as the cabinet goes. So that speech, when she stood up there, what she effectively did was scaffold the Greens going into their arguments next week over what the emissions targets will be, because Labor will want to legislate their 43%. They need the Greens, and Adam Bandt has already come out and said, well, we've had a party room discussion. Look, we're happy to negotiate, but we want higher. We want it to go above 43%. They want 75%, which I don't think they'll ever get to, and all of the other laundry lists that they will bring to the party. So, look, I think all Plibersek did was set them up. And when you have Adam Bandt coming out and stating what she has said in that speech is giving him the grounds to argue against the government for this legislative 43%. Well, it's an own goal for him.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Thanking Plibersek.
It could be intentional, could be a bit of payback. Lisa Goddard, thank you so much for your analysis.
Pleasure.
Kel Richards, it's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, mate.